Little bit of preamble before getting into the Yes PreCure 5 review. There was a pretty big gap between when I wrote down anything about the previous seasons of PreCure and when I actually watched them. And then another very large gap between when I had watched PreCure Splash Star and when I had watched Yes PreCure 5. Because at the time, I was not getting through the seasons with any semblance of pace. I was liking them, but I was not finding them so incredibly engrossing that I had to watch the next one and then had to watch the next one. So the gap between the last time I wrote something on Pretty Cure Splash Star, which was the movie review, and when I opened the doc again that I've been writing this on, to actually write down anything about Yes PreCure 5 was from February 13th of 2023 to March 24th of 2024, which also gives a pretty good idea of how long it's been since I've actually watched Yes PreCure 5. I did watch it earlier this year. Yes PreCure 5 is the first one I had watched in 2024, and currently I am on happiness charge, so I've made a little bit of headway, but this isn't about those. This is about Yes PreCure 5. And this season had a bit of a hard start, but I didn't mind it once I got further into it. I liked getting episodes devoted to each character becoming a cure, per the usual, but it was over the course of the first 5 episodes of the show instead of 2, for obvious reasons. Yes, PreCure 5. It's crazy. They tell you right there in the title. Starting it with a romance tease was a bit lackluster, and then they don't do a ton with it over the course of the show until closer to the end, such as the nature of an episodic TV show. That romance itself is also a point of discussion due to the age gap between Coco and Nozomi. Not one I want to spend a lot of time on, mind you, but I think it's interesting, at the very least, that they try to set up something like that with vaguely defining a character age for Coco, then positioning him as older by making him a teacher. Literally just something about him being in training to become a teacher could close that age gap, because he and Nuts are stated to be princes, so they probably aren't that old, but we don't know, because either way, it's not really something that appealed to me personally. And it wasn't something that the show was interested in spending a lot of time on either. It was on the rare occasion they made a point to say much of anything about how Coco or Nozomi, our main pretty cure, potentially felt anyway. They tease it off with them running into each other, and she rounds the corner and then bonks directly into him, and he catches her as she's following. The only thing that would have made it more stereotypical is if she had a piece of toast in her mouth. But I'm pretty sure she was on her way to school, because it is when she arrives at class that he is there and is like, "Hey guys, I'm going to be your new teacher for homeroom," or whatever he was teaching. And then she's like, "Oh, it's you, that handsome guy." And he's kind of a looker. Good for him. He's also a plush, cuddly marshmallow looking ass guy. A funny little squirrel looking, fox looking little guy named Coco. And good for him being able to take on a human form. Which I guess at the time of release, that could have been an interesting little twist for anybody who was watching the show and had watched previous seasons, because the mascots hadn't had human forms before. Anytime the mascot showed up, they were just a silly dog, or perhaps a cell phone, as they used to transform. But this is also the first season where they don't immediately get a mascot that is their main way of transforming. They have a different toy that the mascots basically power with their magic, but the actual transformation process is entirely unrelated to what the mascot is doing at any given point in time, which I think was kind of a welcome change, because that didn't rely on them getting the mascots out of danger to actually transform and do their good heroing. They could have the mascots be in danger and transform into PreCure to then go try to save them. Despite the initial attention put on our cast in the school, and the main plushie mascot being also the handsome guy who teaches at their school, they don't really spend a lot of time there, I feel. Which is fine. It's not a big deal. It's just interesting that they very clearly set it up with that school setting and then don't do anything with it. Now, they do get parts of the school blowed up or turned into monsters or just kind of under siege occasionally because their presence at the school makes the bad guys show up there unless it's, the plot of the episode. They don't discuss the school much. They don't talk about it. But I like their uniforms. Their uniforms are kind of fun. Initially, I didn't remember much about the show's ending, but as I went back and was thinking about it again, I do remember liking that the villain was painted sort of sympathetically just at the very end. Before that point, not even close. And she was someone who learned or wanted to learn how to understand how our PreCures felt towards the end of their confrontation. And ultimately, before she, died to the fate that she made for herself by unleashing some terrible evil, rather than trying to take it out or take everyone out with her, which I liked that the main antagonist, after seeing the error of their ways, was willing to go down with the ship that they had built by their own evil, villainous hands. And so that was kind of an interesting take on the main antagonist, because before that point, our main antagonists were giant evil Dark Lord who wanted to blow up the Earth, and giant evil Dark Lord who then got usurped by evil Wizard who then, did the same thing, wanted to claim ultimate power for their own by blowing up the Earth. So it was cool seeing an antagonist who was focused on bringing unhappiness learn how to try to be happy, or want to try to be happy, because she saw these just absolutely relentless bundles of joy beating the hell out of her and every minion she had acquired over the course of the show. It was also neat seeing the ease with which the underling workers at their evil corporation were tossed aside, only for the antagonist to then again at the end see what they were doing may be wrong. Nozomi specifically never gave up on getting through to the main antagonist, which is why it actually worked, because she was pursuing her with dogged relentlessness, and that is kind of Nozomi's whole deal. I think that quite a bit of Yes PreCure 5 was specifically the Nozomi show, though. Even the episodes that were about the other girls still needed Nozomi to have an impactful speech in order for them to return to their full strength and beat the villain and their monster, or just the monster, or whatever villains they were fighting at any given point in time, just so they could get over their own personal issues that were mirrored by whatever was happening with the PreCure fighting part of the episode. The Monster of the Week formula took on this additional element every single episode, which did grow a little tiring at times. Nozomi was the one who did the finishers. She was the one who lifted her friends up, but she was also the one who knew exactly what needed to be said and who to say it to and how to say it. Pretty much every single time anything happened in the show that maybe made someone a little downtrodden. I didn't dislike Nozomi. I don't dislike Nozomi, but it is a little odd. I like that she is a little weird. She got into people's business and affectionately pushed herself onto people, and despite her struggle with book smarts, she was incredibly intuitive and could read people like a book. She was borderline psychic at times, and I honestly enjoyed that a lot more than I thought I would. The amount of times where someone is hiding something from her, and she just can kind of intuit that they are hiding something and then figure out what needs to be done to solve this problem are too many to count. Because it is most of the time anything is happening where someone has feelings that they don't want to share. Nozomi can figure out what feelings they are and how to deal with that situation. Anytime people are disguised, she can almost immediately figure out who it is just by particular mannerisms that she picks up on or just a hunch. She does that frequently throughout this season and the next one and the movies. And it's kind of fun that she is just basically... Yes, I'm an empath. But the reliance on Nozomi leading the charge on everything makes the other characters suffer as a result, I think. We get a focus episode here and there, of course. But again, Nozomi is our bad bitch parentheses affectionate. Even when someone else is fighting for their life and control over it, or fighting to find joy in what they once found joy in and no longer can because they are struggling, Nozomi is the one who lifts them up out of their slump. She's the one who has to tell them that their life is meaningless. They should love themselves now. Lightning bolt, lightning bolt. That's Nozomi's job. She's doing that anytime that they have any sort of emotional turmoil in the show. And the other girls get their little moments of speech and like recognizing that they have value or that their interests have value. But it is always started by Nozomi bringing it up or being the one to point it out, which I think, in addition to the already formulaic Monster of the Week format, can get a bit grating at times. I think in order of favorite to least favorite, I enjoyed Rin, and then Urara, and then Komachi, and Karen. Of the other girls, Nozomi is somewhere in there. I'm not sure, honestly. Rin and Urara get to have more interesting personal episodes, in my opinion, but I tend to like these 40-year cures a bit more in general, so she's an obvious pick. I think she's fun. Urara had much more mature episodes because she is dealing with a very intense industry, and it is interesting to watch sort of what steps she is taking to try to become an actress and a performer and the idol career that she has. And it's interesting and kind of fun seeing the not even odd jobs, because they are all building towards making her career more noticeable and appealing for producers. But they feel like odd jobs when she is doing CDs or signings or trying to audition for like a stage performance and all of that kind of stuff, just so she can build up her portfolio, basically. But she is so young to be doing that, and I feel like that is pretty accurate to how the actual real-ass world idol industry worked, or at least maybe still works. I haven't kept up with the details of how that whole scene works. I know it has become not quite as toxic in recent years, but it's probably still not that great. Komachi didn't have very many or very involved personal episodes, and it's probably because they spend so little time thinking about how she's trying to become an author that it becomes part of the background on her own episodes. Karen probably had the least going on this season, unfortunately. It could have been interesting to see it explore an episode or two about potentially, like, her lack of friends due to her wealth or commitments to the student council, keeping her away from much of the usual fun stuff that friends get up to until Nozomi barges her way into Karen's life. Sure, she's friends with Komachi before the show actually starts even, but she's not really involved with many people whom she isn't directly responsible for as managing the student body as the student council president. We don't see her interact with almost anybody unless it is them asking the student council president for something. They want our school's representative Karen. They don't want to hang out with Karen on a Friday night because this new karaoke bar opened up or anything like that. So we don't get a whole lot of her interacting with anybody who isn't Komachi or the main cast. And even then, the first couple of episodes, she doesn't really interact with the main cast because she's not a Cure yet. She is, I believe, the last one to actually join them, which is fine. It was kind of neat seeing the order they went about choosing the Cures in and seeing their own little episodes. Komachi was a little hesitant at first, but didn't seem totally opposed to the idea of becoming a pretty Cure when Nozomi simply decided that she was going to be one of her best friends and magical girl fighting comrades. Karen, on the other hand, was absolutely opposed to the idea. She was like, no, I don't think I'm going to become a magical girl. Thanks, I think. Whatever you're talking about, that's weird. But you seem nice. Bye! But she did come around to it when everyone was put in danger, as they tend to do. And then the rest is the rest of the show. It's still only the first 5 episodes. They were kind of a slow first 5 episodes, but they had to introduce us to each of the characters, and then we had to watch our main girls, who are already magical girls, get beaten up repeatedly, only for the other one, who hasn't been transformed yet, to realize they need to protect their friends and their dreams and hopes. And then the bad guy is like, no, your life is meaningless. You should give in to despair now. It's a kid's show. They're not going to say kill yourself until later in the seasons when they do say I'm going to kill you, because some of the antagonists say that to the magical girls they are fighting. And it is incredibly funny. Yes PreCure 5 is the first season to give us 5 cures, which sets itself apart from Max Heart and Splash Star for obvious reasons, because those seasons only had 2, 3, and 2 again, or 4, depending on if you count the 2 friends that Saki and Mai. I had to remember their names. It's been a while since I've thought about Splash Star again. The 2 friends that they make who are from the evil bad guy organization, if you count them on cures as cures or not. The movies, the crossover movies, kind of seem to not, because they show up in the background, but they don't get to transform into Bright and Windy or whichever 2 forms that they took, which is kind of disappointing, because I would have loved both of them showing up, but I guess they aren't official cures. I am very glad that they took time for each of the characters to become a cure in their own episode, and it made for a bit of fun where Nozomi was walking up to them and going, hey kid, you want to become a magical girl? To humorous results, like when Karen was like, no, that sounds weird. I don't think I want to do that. And then, had to do that because of her friends and wanting to protect them and her school and something responsibility, something. She's the rich girl, so she's the leadership one and in charge. But Nozomi is the weird girl affectionate, and so she's the leader of the pack. You know her well. And then they just go home and hang out at the store that the Mascots made. And then they just kind of hang out there all day. It is really funny that the main cast's base of operations is the store that one of the Mascots is running as a front operation, but actually a store, so that they can look for the little toys that they want to all put in their heart catch. Nope, that's the wrong season. And their little toys, they want to catch the Pinkies, our little Pokemon. They've got like 50 of them they need to find, and they only sometimes finds them. I get most things in the show are to drive the plot forward, but it is kind of funny where they are dealing with like a school play, and then the pacing of it kind of slows down because they're like, oh cool, we got everything that we need for the play, we got everything set up, so what do we do at this point? Whoa, is that a little butterfly that has a human face on it? That must be one of the Pinkies, let's go catch it. And then they use their little Shimigami Tensei Devil Survivor Soul Hackers touchscreen flip phone watch bracelet to catch one of the little dogs that's flying around in the air, and they put it in their catalog. And they say, yeah, we got one. Great. Now we only need like 70,000 more of these. But we're not going to talk about it a lot because they pretty much only exist when we need them to conveniently show up, or when we need the antagonists to show up and be like, actually, we're going to take those because we want to take your little wishing device and then make a wish for bad guys to rule the world. Yay! It is also interesting that one of the antagonists survives the end of the season. Like, they kill some of them, as they are wont to do when they turn into their big monster forms, and the antagonists kind of off each other, because up until the point the main evil woman leading the corporation, and we love to see a girl boss winning, but up until she has her change of heart, she is ruthless, and everybody who works at their evil corporation knows that she is ruthless, and her underlings tend to be ruthless also. You do not cross them unless you want to get sent on a permanent vacation, to the point where they are giving them a evil power-up that will just kind of make them go crazy and stronger, but they will lose their mind in the process. But hey, if you want to beat those dang silly PreCures, that's kind of what you gotta do. And it was kind of cool to see that amount of evil then make a turn at the end. And then also one of the guys who was like a little evil still, but more annoying and obnoxious than evil, survive just because he was like, no, I'm out, I'm done. I'm not going to die here because I want to be good in my evil company. And then he will show up later. The Avengers in-game card, evil bad guy, will return in Yes PreCure 5 go. But there is a lot of overlap between Yes PreCure 5 and Yes PreCure 5 go because it is a sequel season. So I'm not fully sure how long that review is going to be compared to this one. Maybe shorter. I'm hoping a little shorter, or around the same length would be nice, but I don't foresee that happening. I think that Yes PreCure 5 is probably... I couldn't decide on a score initially. I have it listed as somewhere between a 5 and a 6. I don't like giving half ratings. I don't want to say it's a 5.5, but that might be it might be a 5.5. I might break my self-imposed, entirely arbitrary rule of no half scores or no decimal place scores and give it a 5.5 because I wasn't sure if it was good enough to be a 6. I enjoyed watching this season. I don't think it was that stellar. They kind of rely on Nozomi to do everything. The side characters get their episodes occasionally, but they don't have a whole lot going on. Komachi and Karen are basically nothing characters for most of the show, except when they get their personal episodes. All of them they're fun, but they don't, I don't feel like they do a whole lot. And I don't mind their designs, but the season 1 outfits for this show are not as good as the previous ones. Bright and Windy, Bloom and Egret had kind of some funky looks to them, specifically their hair a lot of the time, but they were neat. I liked them. The coloration in the Yes PreCure 5 outfits is just, it's kind of odd, it's kind of samey, and I get that they're on a team, so you have to know they match to be on the same team. Of course, that's the rule, but it's just odd. And then they don't do anything much with Coco and Nuts, especially not Nuts. He's basically just there to kind of like be a downer for most of the time, and to talk with Komachi about writing. And then Milk is just there to fight with Nozomi. and to obsess over cocoa and nuts. She doesn't have a personality in this season except to kind of be an obnoxious, parentheses, sometimes affectionate. And then she's literally a power-up toy for Nozomi. Like, she jumps on her arm, lashes on, and turns into a little magical device, which is fine. It's a kind of a cool way for the mascots to intercede in the fighting without being their transformation toy. I liked that element of it, but she just, as a result, doesn't do a whole lot outside of that. And I think the season suffered for that. But, 5.5 sounds right for this season. I think that's a pretty fair score. Yes PreCure 5!